I hear go get the money, so I go get it. Hate means I do something right, so I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him, yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head, yeah, I'ma let him. All I hear go get the money, so I go get it. Hate means I do something right, so I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him, yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head, yeah, I'ma let him. Early bird go get the worm in the dirt. I could show you what I'm worth, my hands in the dirt. From where they look when you not, a hand in your purse. Hell, if you think I'm last, last should be first.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Spot. My name is Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And as you can see, Tiara's still on vacation. She'll be back really soon, y'all. But we're here to recap Godfather of Harlem Season 4, Episode 3, Straw Man. And before we get into our episode, I want to get right into the housekeeping first. So please like and subscribe to the video, click the notification bell so you can know when the video drops, and like and subscribe and push us out far and wide. So we need your help getting more eyeballs on our videos. Thank you. And anything you say, Ron? You look like you was about to chime in.
I started to, but I said, you've said it all, so let's get started.
All right. Okay, so we started out with the opening scene with James Baldwin, and didn't we say that in the last episode that we thought that we were going to see James Baldwin, and I was happy to see him.
You were?
Yeah.
I was happy later on in the episode.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But like I said,
but yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But for me, I said literary.
Yeah.
James Baldwin and everything. That's my thing. Literature and stuff.
Right.
So I was happy to see it. It was kind of like an embarrassing scene for Mayme because basically, and he was in his lecture, he was calling out drug lords and calling out Bumpy. And Mayme was in the audience, but Alice Warnock, is that her last name? Is it Warnock?
I thought it was
or Alice, the white woman Alice was in the audience with Mayme, and she already had asked Mayme to have James Baldwin write the foreword for this project, come meet him for an introduction, and all that, and that doesn't look too promising to sit there and hear, James Baldwin and Bumpy going back and forth. That's not a good look when Amy's trying to pitch this project. So
I'm gonna tell you up front that Mayme gets the hands this week for me. I'll explain later.
Okay, no. I understand. I understand exactly why and stuff, and and I may agree with you. We'll go there. We'll go there. So Bumpy goes to his accountant, and he's talking about his funds, his business interests and stuff. And come to find out that the building that he had already put a deposit on has been scooped by Marshall Grant. And Marshall Grant is a brother, and stuff. And he was just like, well, hold up. How they do that when I already put a deposit back? And he was like, well, you may not get your deposit back. You may get your deposit, but that's it. And right. So she was like, oh, so it's a black man. And Whoopi, what's Whoopi's character's name? I forgot her name. Mm-hmm. But she said what we always say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And she said, because he was like, I'm gonna have to roll up on this brother and find out who he is, like what's up with him and stuff. And so before we got to that point, Frank Lucas was posted up with the doozy. And even though he got a doozy, he can't move it. He ain't doing nothing with it. He's a wanted man.
Well, or at least what we were saying about Frank last week, and I'm going to say it again, he's not an intelligent man. And I say that intelligence now, I'm not talking about street sense. But then again, even if he had street sense, he should have known if you're going to steal all of that, you got to be able to move it. And if you don't have the team or the equipment to move, then it's just going to sit there. And you never thought that eventually that they will catch up with you. Now, I can say what he is. He's a very lucky crook. But look, this man is lucky because he would have had a bullet in his head any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
we'll
mean,
get deeper into that, but I look,
I respectfully disagree with
how
that
is that? Tell
about
me how.
Frank. Only
Tell me how.
because we know what he
Well,
became
and
with guidance.
that's why I say lucky, because let's just assume that what we are seeing on TV is the actual events on how he got to know Bumpy. Now, had he done that to the Italians?
Well, we don't know what's gonna happen. He did do it to the Italians. He's
What I'm saying is
probably doing
up front. If the Italians had caught him, if the Italians, you remember um um they were initially thinking that Bumpy had something to do with the missing drugs.
it. They
Had they
did.
known, but had they known it was Frank and they knew where Frank was,
They
they
did
wouldn't
know.
even,
They did know it was Frank
no,
because
no.
Bumpy said at the meeting that some country boy and
Yeah.
stuff. So they did
But
know.
remember when Stella had that meeting with was it who was it? Pettigrew? I think it was Pettigrew, or was it the other one? No, yeah, Pettigrew. When Stella
With
had,
Chance, she had a meeting with Chance and
yeah,
her man.
yeah, they were they were acting on the, or at least the other I don't know what his name is, but
Is
he
it if Pino? That's I think Pino is the name of the guy that
I couldn't catch it.
that Shin put in charge.
I didn't catch his name, but he's the one that thought he had to deal with the blacks the way he had
Yeah, yeah,
to
Pino.
deal with them. And
Hmm.
I'm saying, had he known where Frank was and knew that it was Frank, not Bumpy, Frank would have had a bullet in his head.
Well, who do you think it was that went after Frank later on in the episode?
No,
Before the end of the episode, we saw the guy, and I believe Stella may have given the orders. He pulled up on that. He was looking for Frank.
yeah,
He was looking for Frank, and then Frank got the drop on him. They tussled, but Frank, you know,
but that,
but I'm
it goes
saying
back
so
to
they were
say,
doing just what you.
that's my point. It goes back to what I was saying. Um, had they got the drop on Frank first, in other words, if they had known where Frank was, and let's say Frank was in his apartment, had they known all of that, I'm assuming that some time they had to take time to figure out who it was. Particularly once Stella informed them that it's not Bumpy, and she then told this guy or his underling to go
Mhm.
out and find this guy, which
Mhm.
he did, which they were able to do. But what I'm trying to say is that's why he's lucky because he had time, and the time is what helped him in the position that he's in. You don't steal Doogie and then think that you're gonna walk out and survive. I mean, even he said that to his girlfriend. When she said, "Hey, why don't you give it back to Bumpy?"
The bullet would be in my head.
The
Yeah,
bullet would
he said
definitely
it.
be in his
He
head.
said it.
So he's lucky more than he is intelligent. And I don't know how.
I don't see him as being a dummy. I think what it is,
I didn't
what
say
we
a
see,
dummy. I'm just saying
but intelligent as far as being
crafty.
I think
Crafty.
it's the youth. I think it's the youth.
Not
I
you.
think
No,
I do think it's youth. I think
it's
it's
not you.
youth
It's the
and
inexperience.
cockiness that makes him think that he could go to another city.
Cockiness has
And
nothing to do with youth because I know some old people that are cocky. So I'm saying that with the inexperience of being in the big city, and
that's what I'm talking about.
that's not youth. That's
Well,
just
it is because I mean
it's
it's youth and
naivety. It's naive.
inexperience.
Naive. It's naive.
That
You don't know. You don't know what you know. But my point is, being naive, you don't have to be stupid. You don't steal Doogie. He knows better than that. In fact, he knew Bumpy before he got to New York because of whatever he heard about Bumpy. I
yeah,
know
he
he
knew of his
considered him
legend.
a good Samaritan.
Yeah.
So why would you come in thinking that? Look, I love uh, uh, when these storylines get a little creative and they want to make the storyline interesting and so forth. Hey, I'm all for it. But in reality, no, it wouldn't have happened that way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Somebody else has to tell me that's been in the doogie business that this is the way. And I don't know anybody, but it doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, pretty dramatized for TV purposes and
Bit
stuff.
of life. Yeah.
But we do know that he was, um, robbing and pulling capers and hustles and stuff
Small
before.
time stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, small time stuff before he really he's gonna have to be mentored. He's gonna have to be mentored because he's coming in wrong. Because he came in when when he stole the doogie, he had the conversation with his girl and just said like, he's stuck because he can't get it moving. And he said, I'm gonna have to find an Italian that's not hating on us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, when he said that, I was wondering, I was like, who could he possibly be thinking about meeting with? And at first I was thinking Stella. Because I was like, Stella might be the person to it. But who does he go to but Colombo and everything? He got an audience with Colombo. And I thought that was interesting. And I was just like, and I think Colombo may be interested in dealing with him or dealing with anybody who is willing to go against Bumpy. And since he already, crossed Bumpy, because we saw the exchange, we saw that Chance and Pettigrew pulled up on Frank
Hmm.
and said, and Chance let him know, it was like, listen, if Bumpy wants you gone, we wouldn't even be talking to you right now.
Exactly.
So he said you can come on your own or you can come on your back.
Exactly. That's my point.
So and he went. And when he started talking to Bumpy, this is why I say that you say he's not intelligent. He is. Because what he said to Bumpy, Bumpy saw it too. Because he said I gave you a job. He said, oh, you gave me a job. And he said, no, you gave me that job because you thought I was expendable.
Mhm.
So he peeped game. So that's why I said he's not dumb. I think he is intelligent. Now, is he moving like you said, he's naive and being immature and just moving to like he needs to be groomed and learn how,
Okay, but I think a
learn
seven.
how to move. But he sized Bumpy up in that
Well, I mean,
conversation. He
well,
did.
I mean, look, it kind of like it's a math problem. 2 and 2 equals 4. You got these two goons, and they are loyal to you. Why are you asking me to do the job? You should be asking them. So yeah, a 6-year-old could figure that one out. But my point is, and then he was even getting cocky with Bumpy in that regard. Now, naivety and cockiness don't know they're not married to one another.
Right.
If they are, somebody needs a divorce. So if you can't be both, be one or the other, but don't be both. And this is why I say he's lucky again, because Bumpy is in the I'm out of this game business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to kill anymore. I don't want to do the drugs anymore. And that's the only reason Frank was still standing. Because
Mm-hmm.
what did Bumpy say after as he was
Yeah,
leaving?
he was like, you better get up out of here
This
before you
again,
get there.
and what's going to happen to you?
Yeah.
So that's my point about the naivety and the cockiness. You need a divorce between those two, brother, because you're going
Mm-hmm.
to be on your back permanently if you keep this up.
Exactly. And I think that's why what's going to happen is, eventually they're going to have a come to Jesus. I'm like, Frank is going to finally figure out once he starts bumping into things and pissing off the wrong people, he and Bumpy gonna have to form an alliance. Like you
Right.
can't, and that's basically you can't go into anybody's territory. You are out of town. You're not from there, and you cannot go into anybody's territory and just think you can just
Do
do just steal
yeah,
your
and
piece of the pie or whatever and stuff. You gotta
he has
there's
no
a
clue.
hierarchy. You gotta know the rules. You gotta be connected and as people say in the street, you gotta check in.
You got to check in, and you
You
got
gotta check in. You can't just run up there and start doing what you want to do. So
why I say
the way he came in was definitely wrong.
stupid. It's
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah, it
That's
was,
what
it
you
was,
call
it
it.
was.
I mean, you don't have to be stupid and young don't aren't married to each other either. I know some smart young brothers, but he is just he's thinking that oh this you know what he's equating New York and or Harlem because it's all black, and I think and I'm just materializing here
Mhm.
um, like North Carolina, where he's from. Oh,
I
I
don't think
think when,
so. I
well,
don't think so.
well, there's got to be a reason that you thought you can come in and move the way you do, and you are doing. And let me say this about Colombo. Colombo doesn't have any love for black folk, and
Mm-mm.
Colombo is an opportunist. So what he sees here,
That's what I said.
he
He,
sees an
he
opportunity. Now, what will he do? You know, well, we know the end story about Frank. So unless they have some other creative licensing with Frank, I don't know. But in theory, he wants to see what he can get from Frank. That's all.
Yeah. And he's somebody who is going against Bumpy. And
Yeah,
and like as you say, he's an opportunist and
correct.
such. Because and he's like, okay, because we can go there about Bumpy and Colombo's role with Bumpy because the Marshall Grant thing, going back to that, with Bumpy pulls up on Marshall Grant and comes to find out that Marshall Grant is somebody that used to court his sister.
Yeah.
And Marshall Grant doesn't have no love for Bumpy. He thinks that Bumpy is a thug, and said that he ain't never been no good. And he blames Bumpy for the sister's death because said the sister was worrying so much about
Mm.
Bumpy being in these streets that she passed away. And so he thinks that Bumpy is like a common thug. And so, Bumpy was trying to show him that he was a businessman and stuff. And, he was treating Bumpy with disrespect
If he
the whole time. At
if
every
he,
at every turn, he was disrespecting Bumpy.
if he wasn't an octogenarian, or someone in their 80s, I get tongue tied that way. But if he wasn't in his 80s,
A senior citizen. Let it make it simple.
seniors amongst the senior citizens, if he weren't that, it might have been a different story. But then again, when you even take what that regard, and you saw how calm Bumpy was,
Mm-hmm.
so we can see that Bumpy has a clear change of mind and change of heart about the position that he's in. And something else I said earlier last week when it came to this guy Fred, what's his name?
Straub. Yeah, the
The
Straub, the partner Straub and something.
right now, which is why I said he had to be very careful with putting all his eggs up front. That is everything he owns, because we see if a white person, particularly someone who wants to come in and rebuild and make Lower Manhattan as if it were Upper Manhattan, and bring in white folks and bring in these new buildings and things like that, and they got the money, yeah, they would do exactly what this
Well,
guy.
they were trying to use Marshall Grant as a front. They were
Exactly.
trying to.
Because
They
that
were.
because that gave them the tax structure they needed. That gave them
Mm-hmm,
everything they needed. And my point,
mm-hmm.
if it can happen once, it can happen again. I'm not sure if we're done hearing from this guy Strong. I think we're going to hear from him again.
Oh, of course. I was getting ready to go there. Like Marshall, he put Marshall Grant in that position, and basically was still trying to pull strings behind the scenes and everything. Marshall was just going to be a face and was paying his rent
Right.
and stuff like that. And you see that Straub even went to Colombo too. Like you mob guys do what you do. Like take care of Bumpy, and then he even said like he's supposed to be a businessman. Like who's the real crook? And he says to Colombo, yeah, and after the deal is done, you dispose of Marshall Grant. So I was like, this poor old man, and Bumpy saw it because even when he was being disrespectful, and Pettigrew was checking him like, you better watch how you talk to, and Bumpy was like,
Mm,
chill.
exactly.
And I think Bumpy took that approach with him too because this is somebody who used to love his sister
Yeah.
too. So that's the other thing too. Like not only is this man because he was like, show some respect. This man is our elder,
Mhm.
and stuff. So he was being respectful in that regard, but he was also being respectful to that man because this is somebody who used to love my sister and
And and
everything,
and, and to
and
some
wanted to marry her and stuff. And so he was showing him,
respect and
yeah,
and to some degree, I would believe that Bumpy probably thought he did, indirectly have something to do with the her passing. So
probably did, probably broke her heart.
yeah, and I'm sure that he was, that he's still in pain from that. And then this guy Marshall or Mr. G, he brings back all those bad memories.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's going to affect Bumpy. So Bumpy was subdued for a reason.
Yeah, he was.
And
He
you know,
definitely kept alive.
and I have to say for the old man, that if he didn't understand the whole big picture, and that's why I love Bumpy because Bumpy brought brought him to Straub and said, let's go and look at the big picture. Let's look at
Mm-hmm.
what you're not getting. And
Mm-hmm.
once he got that, the whole story turned. Now, I'm afraid for him. And, and this is why I say I think we're going to hear back from Straub
I
real
think
soon.
so too. I think so too because you know Bumpy took Mr. Grant. They interrupted Straub's board meeting,
Mhm.
and kind of find out. It wasn't what he thought. Like Marshall Grant thought this was going to help Black folks, and then when he got in the meetings, he saw they were talking about tearing down the Apollo to make a parking lot and all this other stuff, and so it was like, oh no, this is not what I signed up for and everything. So that's when he turned and said, here's $1. I'm selling you my share for $1. And after that, he and Bumpy put him up in a new place and everything. But like you, I'm scared because Straub had already told Colombo that after the deal is done to get rid of him. And now Mr. Grant has double crossed him. And so I'm like,
He
hopefully
crossed
Bumpy puts him.
Colombo too. He crossed Colombo
He
because
crossed
remember,
him. Yeah, because Colombo
Colombo
sure
was
did.
the one that went to
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Marshall,
Colombo had dinner with
had
him.
that dinner and was
Spaghetti
actually
carbonara.
he wanted to kind of put fear in his heart, but when he realized that he had such disdain for
Bumpy.
Bumpy, he mellowed out and said, okay, well, job's done here. But now,
Yeah, he told him. He said it's very important
yeah,
that you take that you do this deal. And
exactly.
he said it to him. So I'm just like I'm scared for Mr. Grant because
Yeah.
I think he might not be long for this earth now that he's made this deal with Bumpy. And I hope Bumpy has put some guards or somebody on Mr. Grant
Well,
because he can't he Bumpy has to know that this is not going to end well.
and that's what, and I agree, and I'm hoping that Bumpy is thinking broadly enough to understand that he just put this man's life in jeopardy because they just don't play by the rules. So it's very safe to assume that Colombo's going to come after him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. I think so. I'm scared for Mr. Grant. Um, I wanted to talk about the Stella situation because Stella went to talk to Delia, Teddy's mom, and and she was just talking about how, like being a boss in a man's world, like trying to get that respect and this, that, and the other. And Delia pretty much tells her like, you're gonna have to take that
You want
respect. You're
power?
gonna have
You
to
got to take it.
take that power. You're gonna take that power and stuff. And so, and then we saw later that Stella was calling shots and stuff and everything. So I said, oh, okay, so she gonna lean into this power. But as she was leaving, we see the Black Panther come in, and who is it but Afeni Shakur? I was like,
Pac's
okay,
mom,
Tupac's mom. I was like, they introduced Afeni, and I was excited about that. And Afeni is meeting Elise, and we see that Elise is wanting to she's going to be
Wrong.
converted.
She's
Yeah.
involved. And you could see that from um, you know, um Omar's situation, and you see how
Mm-hmm.
frustrated she had become with the government. And so, I love my Black Panthers, man. I
Revolutionized. Yeah.
because our cousin Bumpy was standing for it. They weren't standing for any mess. No, you're not going to throw this stuff in our neighborhood. So I was glad to see her join, but when are you ready to talk about Mamie?
Yes, I was going there next. I was going there next because I was like, you know, Feeney said something to at least that I thought was really poignant because she said, like the mission didn't die with Malcolm. Like she was like, it that's still stoked in you. Like that's still in you. And so she basically was giving Elise another avenue, to carry out the mission and stuff. And so
There's so many Black
you see
people.
her, during the episode getting, radicalized and revolutionized and stuff. And so basically we saw Margaret. Margaret was in school and Margaret, the teachers trying to teach them about Columbus and stuff, and
False
yeah,
history.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They willingly
Lies.
saying that they willingly gave. They're
Oh,
like, no, no, no. So
man was a
Margaret
marauder, and he did kill. He came to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's exactly.
pillage and occupy. Pillage. I always say that P&O, pillage and occupy. That's what it was.
Oh
And
man.
and Margaret stood on business and corrected him.
Hmm.
And because of that, she got suspended. She
Oh,
got
beaten and suspended.
beaten and suspended. She got beaten and suspended. We find out when she gets suspended, like Mamie is proper and she believes in being dignified and
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
demure and stuff. And so
Look, Mamie was almost on my hands list last
I
week.
know, I know.
Alice good chick, okay? She almost
Uh-huh.
got my hands on that. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I understand being dignified and honorary and all this. I mean, not honorary, but
Honorable.
bold and wanting to elude this sense of, yes, I'm not like them, but who are them that you're referring to? You're in a different hemisphere, Mamie. So your husband has money because of the dealings that he was doing. But what Bumpy is now seeing is that he has to come down and deal with the lower echelon because they're the people who are hurting the most. And that's where Bumpy is wanting to live now. And you're still in this high sedity mode of we're better than that. No, we're not. We are.
I think she doesn't like the idea of
It doesn't matter what you
like
like.
being militant. That's it. I,
No,
I
okay.
think she
No,
likes
that's a
the
white man's term for a black man's action. So you got to
right.
understand, being militant is not what you are. It's a white man's term for a black man's action. So,
Listen, I'm not listen.
so that's what got me, because I'm like, ain't nobody being you the one that's
Yeah, because you can see how she was behaving, like when they were watching the Black Panthers on TV. Um, and Mamie and Elise were all, I mean, Elise and Margaret were all into the broadcast and stuff. And then and Margaret said, "There's some fine men." And Elise was like, "You ain't wrong. They are some fine men." And Mamie was like, "Turn off the TV and go into your room." And Elise was like, "Well, since when is it wrong to listen to a
black
black man
man, right?
like defending himself, so she checkmate me there.
But
And I
before so many black people felt the same way about the Black Panther movement because of what J. Edgar Hoover sold. He sold a bill of goods, and those goods were they're no good, But no, far be it for black people to be on the streets with semi-automatic weapons,
and
not
know their rights
not killing anybody,
and know their rights.
protecting themselves and knowing their rights. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big no. So this is why I'm down on Mamie. Mamie, you have the opportunity. Well, even toward the end when she
she
decided
came, she came around she
she
came
came,
around
yeah,
because
she came around, but just I want to know how round you are. Okay?
well,
Because
she
you
came around
get
to
back
this
into that high
school.
sedittiness and we're gonna have a problem.
Right. Well, she came around because Elise said that after they found out, when Margaret was in the room and Elise came to check on her after she got suspended, that's when she showed her the bruises and said that like half the class had been brutalized by this teacher. So Elise was like, "Oh, we got to do something. We got to rise up. We got to protest." And protest they did. By the end of the episode, them mothers marched, including Mamie, and the Black Panthers showed up to the school,
When the police
and
were
they,
about to put their hands on somebody,
yeah,
and
yeah, and the
who
Black
showed
Panthers
up?
there, like, yeah, y'all
And
try it,
what did Shakur say? Test me or try me.
try me, yeah, try it, yeah. So they they um they stepped the principal and demanded that he fire this
That's it.
teacher
Mhm.
and stuff, and said that they been brutalizing the children and stuff. So I think more than likely they gonna get their way this time, because they took a stand. And I thought that was a really cool scene, and even the music that was playing during that time, I was like, I was like, all right, y'all. Um,
I felt at one point that Elise was just going to break down and tell Margaret, look, let me tell you the truth about whose you belong to.
No, she already knows.
I mean,
The first,
in terms of you know what you're doing from my heart. You have my heart. You have my soul, and
mm-hmm.
I want you to keep marching
In
with
my spirit.
in my
Mm-hmm.
in my
Mm-hmm.
spirit because
Mm-hmm.
this person that's been taking care of you has another agenda. It's fine to know both sides, but you got to know when to lay down the sedittiness, that high sedittiness, and
Yeah.
pick up the gauntlet and start your fight. Because
Mm-hmm.
whatever we do to defend ourselves, they're going to call us wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to know the difference between right and wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I
And
was
I
hoping that she was going to break it down right then and there when Mamie cut off the television and she said, "Oh,
yeah, yeah.
what's the problem? You got a problem with positive black people talking?" And I thought she was
Mm-hmm.
gonna break it down then.
Yeah. Well, I think it's leading to that because we saw by the end of the episode Elise she had her leather jacket, she had the fro. I was like, oh, she's full on converted now and stuff. So I think that she's definitely gonna have a huge influence on Margaret. It's probably gonna be the bumping of the heads between her and Mamie
Oh yeah.
because Mamie has one way. The first thing I thought about, I was just like the Booker T and the WB Du Bois argument with them, the ways about. So I was just like, I said I can see there being, some friction about how they want
Well,
to
Baldwin said
raise Margaret.
well, Baldwin said it when he came around to speak with
To Bumpy.
Bumpy that, and it was true. We can have differences in tactic but still come together in unity to achieve the same goal because of the fact that you are more scholarly and you want to do it through writing and through your words and Bumpy is doing it through another means doesn't mean that we can't come together. And that was the whole issue with Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Our tactics may be different, but
But we got
end
common
goal,
goal. We
our
got
end goal is
yeah,
the
common
same.
goal.
And this is where we come together in unity. And the same thing with Black Panther movement, because of the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King didn't care too much for that movement either, because of what they were sold. They were sold a bill of goods. But what they did for the Black community is immeasurable. No government agency was trying to feed those kids every day and to make sure they had good meals to go to school and go to school with full bellies and things of that sort. I'm like, I can't get too involved with it, but they were doing far more good than any evil that white America had painted them with. Just a broad brush, but to make our community look and feel shameful of what they were doing.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly, and I was happy to see the Baldwin come around and talk to Bumpy, and basically, you can see that they want the same thing. He even talked about why he went to France and stuff, and he was just like, I'm just as guilty. Like I went to, and I'm a black man over there too. You still no matter where you go, you're gonna have to deal with the plight of
Being
you
a
know it's a favorite quote of his that I wanted to read that I always refer to, and I've posted it before. And I wanted to read. I'm trying to see. I'll come back to it because I'm searching for it. But I used to post it a lot on social media that James Baldwin and it was talking about. Basically, it was just like we can disagree, but if your disagreement um involves the impression of me and my people, then that's a problem. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's that quote that I always
right.
refer to. Like, hey,
And
we agree to disagree.
and yeah, and we can agree to disagree, but it shouldn't hamper
It shouldn't result in my oppression.
our
That's the gist of the quote
right.
that James Baldwin
Because
always.
we have an end goal and we have to get there. So, yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
might disagree with how I want to do it, but there is a middle ground, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
need to learn to
Mm-hmm.
get to that
Mm-hmm.
middle ground. We can do both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I think we have touched on a lot of the high points in my notes. Is there anything you don't think we touched on? Because we talked about Frank. We know Frank went to Colombo. He's still messing up. He messing up. Um, Bumpy end up, swaying Mr. Grant. Both of us think that Mr. Grant is in danger.
Yeah.
Stella flexed her muscle just a little bit this episode, calling shots thanks to Delia. I'm still worried about Delia. I,
Yeah, I am.
I'm nervous. I hope nothing happens to her, but I'm nervous
Yeah.
because she's going to the diner to visit her, and I feel like when enemies know who you care about, this, that, and the other. I mean, they become, they become a liability for you and stuff. So,
Well, I hope
I
I hope Stella burns into her head what Chin said to her last week, which meant, you may have to take out people you love. You may have to do
mhm.
quite a few things. So, and then, she was told this episode that power cannot be, um, you cannot achieve power through um, the normal. Uh, uh,
You can't wait for it to come to you. You
right,
can't lay in the cut and
right,
think, oh, this is the day, this is when it's gonna happen. You gotta take it. You
right.
gotta seize the moment. And that's what she was telling her. And after that, um
And
Stella heeded what she said. And you can see that I'm like, okay, she's starting to
so, and in fact, typically they take out some big head in their organization, and that's how they become,
mhm,
on
mhm.
top. That's how they get on top. So, she may even have to take out her dad. If we hope not, but
Mm-mm.
if she does, she will get the respect of everyone else.
Well, I mean, if they stick to the script, we'll know that,
I know. I'm just a creative license.
yeah,
Yeah.
creative license and stuff, but we'll see. Um, yeah, so I guess we should move on to the who can get the hands list then. Who can get the hands? Are we putting Frank on the hands list for
Yeah,
his actions for
yeah.
what?
Because look, I understand what Frank wants to do, and I understand why he wants to do it. You're just going about it in a very um uh, obscure way. You're not
Immature man.
covering your back. You're doing a lot. You're making a lot of quick moves, but you're really not solidifying anything. So yeah, you get the hands for me for just being stupid. You don't have to be stupid. I'm not calling him a dummy. I'm just
Right. But his moves are stupid.
You're just
He's moving like, yeah, yeah, a stupid, inexperienced person. The way he's
yeah,
moving.
well,
Definitely, he's definitely
breaking that
making
small
rookie.
time hood.
Yeah, yeah, he's
You
making
know,
rookie moves.
yeah,
He's making rookie moves.
you're about to make. I mean, it's bad enough you got Bumpy at looking over his shoulder about you, and now
Hmm.
you got Colombo, and you're
Hmm.
still from Colombo too. If you're still from Bumpy, you're still from Colombo.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then I was gonna say he better recognize that you don't want to cross paths with Bumpy, but you definitely don't want to cross paths with the Italians either, especially without any allies.
That's the point. No army, nothing. You just
Hmm.
these dumb moves.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
maybe
that's why I think necessity eventually is going to force him right back into Bumpy's stuff. I think he's going to end up having to be on Bumpy side, and he's going to just go through an initiation process. All this stuff, I think, is like because he, like Bumpy said, he was like when what's called said he was like you did it because I was expendable. He was like it was a test, and he
Mhm.
said you failed it then, and you're failing now. So, I think eventually he's going to get the lesson, and that will be a way for he and Bumpy to get together. So if
I
we're
no, go
if
ahead.
we're if we're giving him the hands, who are we giving the game ball?
Well, wait a minute. I know I said Mamie, but I want you all to understand why Mamie is getting the hands.
Oh, I understand. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Uh,
Go ahead.
you know, it's fine to teach your child, uh, how to the disciplines, how to act when you're in the company of the enemy, if I want to say, but education is more than just about books. It's the total education. And back then, we were being miseducated, and Margaret was trying to get the full picture, and you didn't allow that, man, because you were either fearful or just so high up that you felt as though you didn't have to, or she didn't have to uh, receive such kind of information. Because a lot of times back then, a lot of families, black families, were afraid for their children to get the full picture of what was going on. We were hidden. You were, we call it protected, but sometimes when you don't show them the real picture, they grow up naive. They grow up monolithic, with uh, blinders on, and they can't see anything other than what's in front of them.
Mhm.
You got to know both sides. You have
Yeah,
to kind
I
of
think
respond to both sides.
I think Mamie is proper and dignified, and I think she didn't. I don't think she likes the idea of you know
She's trying to fit in.
speaking up like she's trying to
Fit in.
stay she's trying
But
to you know how we all have the code switch, and I think that she wanted Mamie, I mean Margaret, to stay, like pretty much. I'm trying to find the best word to say it, but like to stay in her place, not push
what is
back and everything and stuff. There's a way to fight back and stay. Like, you see how she was really frustrated last week when she had to deal with that woman. She was still, she still presented outwardly facing. She was still like, but behind the scenes, she was really angry and she was drinking and stuff.
and, but
Whereas
when
there's a time to
when
stand
Alice
up. Like
called her,
she needs to tell Margaret that it is okay for her to stand up
well,
for herself.
even when Alice called Baldwin a chocolate, what was it,
Frog,
frog?
chocolate frog.
You could have stood up then. You didn't have to get angry. You didn't have to get in fighting mode. You could have said something to the effect, James Baldwin is one of our greatest orators and scholars.
Mm-hmm.
We do not see him
As
as
a
a
chocolate
chocolate
frog.
frog. I think you can come up with something a little better than that.
Yeah, I
You know,
think she was.
you gotta put the
I think
brakes.
she was
You gotta put the
scared.
brakes
She
on.
was so worried about getting that
Well,
position on
there's
herself.
my problem. That's my problem. If
Right.
if if your need to be higher up is greater than your need for your people,
To
then that's
stand up
a
is a
problem.
problem. It's a problem. Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So, but she was still trying to make the pitch for Bumpy, though. Like even when she talked to James Baldwin, she was trying to pitch Bumpy's idea,
She's
and everything.
so
So
did
she is, because I think she sees the bigger picture. It's just that, like I said, the Booker T and the W.B. Du Bois way. Like her manner is different. She's not, she's more demure in everything. She's that. Whereas Elise is Black Panther.
They definitely are.
She's nation. She's Black Panther. She's power to the people.
They're on two extremes for sure, but I'm saying there's a middle ground.
I believe that too. Listen,
Yes, I mean we
comic goals, comic entrance.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So
So I'm done with my platform right now because
yeah.
I had to get it out of off my chest because
No, I'm glad.
this. But I have
When I
to say,
saw it, I was like, oh wow,
but this
okay,
is
okay.
one of the better episodes, and I thought last week was pretty good. But it's going to be hard to top this one.
Oh, it's getting into the nitty gritty for sure. Like, and then introducing all these people, the era that we're in. Yeah, I was excited from the opening scene onward.
Right.
So okay, so we identified the who's on the hands list. What about the game ball? Who gets it?
Mhm. Give it to
Bumpy.
Mr. G.
Okay, okay, Mr. G, yeah, because he did share. So his shares to
Well,
Bumpy.
yeah, he here again, allowed himself to be educated, came around and did the right thing.
Hmm. I give it to Bumpy because he took a lot of verbal abuse and stuff. He still stayed even kill. You
Mhm.
know, he didn't lose his cool, and he educated Mr. Grant.
Right,
He said, like, hey, let's go down there. Let's go down there and I'm gonna show you what they're gonna do and stuff. And they interrupted, like, say if they never pulled up to that board meeting.
mhm,
Mr. Grant would have never known that. Like they're using Mr. Grant as a front, as a straw man, as the title, episode title says. And they're making moves in parking lots and would have been tearing down, you know, major landmarks in Harlem,
mhm.
the Apollo and everything else. The landmarks that Black people are proud of.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so I'm like, no. And so I'm glad that Bumpy pulled up and brought Mr. Grant with him, Mr. G, and was like, you can hear for yourself what he's talking about.
Right.
And that's what, helped change Mr. G's mind. And so I also give Bumpy the game ball for that because he was victorious in getting that back. Now I think, you and I already said it. I think Mr. G might be up out of here for that, but we'll see.
We'll see. I hope not, but we'll
I
see.
hope not. I hope not. I hope not. But the fact that Colombo already made that threat to him and Mr. Straub told him to, I think so. But I think it was a good episode and I enjoyed our conversation
Yeah.
and everything. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to our discussion. I want you guys to like and subscribe this video and push us out far and wide. And like I said, click the notification bell so you can get notice of all our future videos and tune into our playlist too. We have a lot of interviews that we've done with the cast and the showrunner,
Mhm.
Chris Brancato. I said it last week, but I'm saying it again. Ilfanesh Hadura, who plays Mayme, and Antoinette Crow Legacy, who plays Elise. And then we have several other interviews from other shows that we're covering, like Raising Kanan and Shy and other things too. So check out our playlist and our interviews. Follow us on social media. We are on all of the social media platforms, IGX, Facebook, TikTok. And yes, please.
Also building up our shorts page. So, if you don't have the time to watch us in depth, just take a look at the shorts and get a
Clips.
good idea. Yeah, the clips and get a great idea of what we're trying to say here because we got a lot to say.
Yeah.
You
And
said,
if you want to join us,
oh, definitely.
you probably saw last week we had our friend of the show, fam, Ron H, join us. So if you want to join us for an episode, just hit us up. Let us know. We'll be happy to have you.
Ron is what we call our sixth man. So,
Yeah. 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 Well, anyway, thank you for joining us for this episode 3 recap. And we look forward to seeing you next week for the episode 4 recap. Thank you and have
a great evening. Cheers. Good night.
bye.
What's wrong with being ratchet?